Hey guys, Andy here. Welcome back. Shared madness is that even a thing? Does that exist? Can madness be contagious? I think in some ways that question is explored in this issue 59 of Batman: Shadow of the Bat, which I wanted to share with you. It's an interesting story. It's an interesting story. It got me thinking about a lot of things actually to do with madness and the nature of contagious madness, if that's even a real thing. I don't know, but it's an interesting idea. This issue is written by Alan Grant, who is a very interesting writer and comes up with some very, very unique ideas in relation to whatever he writes. I think he's very good with Batman. I think he's done some very good stories, and this one is no exception. This issue is drawn by an artist by the name of Dave Taylor. Admittedly, I'm not very familiar with Dave Taylor's work, but it's drawn well. I can't really complain about the art. I think it's good for what it is. The story centers around uh, the efforts of one of Scarface's henchmen, Rhino, trying to liberate Arnold Vesker, the original ventriloquist, from prison, because that's the only way that the team can really get back into action. He realizes that he himself is not good enough or effective enough to lead anything by himself, and he's trying to learn ventriloquism to take instructions from Scarface, which is an absolutely loony idea, but it's so much fun. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Alan Grant, I think, excels in his storytelling in this book. This notion of shared madness, contagious madness, springs from this particular panel. The idea that Rhino would learn ventriloquism so he can take instructions from a dummy. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Anyway, uh, in the initial first panels relating to this particular issue, he's not very successful until he's confronted by some goons, some opponents of Scarface, and they want to get rid of him. They want to get rid of the dummy. They want to get rid of Rhino. And when he's about to be killed, and Scarface dummy is thrown across the pier, suddenly, I think the ventriloquism must have worked. I think Rhino has now learned how to throw his voice because Scarface speaks. He speaks and he instructs Rhino to get rid of these goons. And Rhino, being the ever-loving henchman that he is, obliges the boss by doing just that. At the conclusion of the tale, the ventriloquist is indeed liberated by Rhino and Scarface from prison. They are reunited, and reluctantly, Arnold Vesker, aka the ventriloquist, takes on the mantle of Scarface's right hand man again. Now, the ventriloquist, Arnold Vesker in particular, more so I suppose than Scarface the dummy, for me has always been a very fascinating character. A character steeped in tragedy. In this comic book, in this issue, it's explained that Arnold, as a child, witnessed the death of his parents also, not in the same manner in which Bruce Wayne's parents died. They were gunned down in an alley, of course, but with Arnold, he was out on the town, well, on a pier near the seaside with his parents. And whilst they were walking, they were hit by a car. So it was a hit and run. They both died. He survived. The car sped off, and so his early childhood was steeped in tragedy, much like Bruce's. He kept that repressed. He kept that anger and that frustration and that sadness repressed until one day in a barroom brawl, he basically killed someone. And as a result of that, he was sent to prison. And whilst he was at prison, he was introduced to the dummy, the Scarface dummy, which is where all of his woes as the ventriloquist began. Now, I've always wondered whether there is an element of the occult, the supernatural, with this character of the ventriloquist and Scarface. In this issue, it's explained that a lot of men died on the gallows tree at Blackgate before a bolt of lightning brought that tree down. And from that tree, this murderer named Donegan carved the blackened stump into a dummy, which would then, of course, become the Scarface dummy. And then Vesker further down would meet Scarface dummy. Not quite sure exactly how they meet, but anyway, once they do meet, Scarface made him kill someone and escape. So this notion of the occult, it's there, but so is this idea of madness, this all-consuming madness. And the reason why I brought up at the beginning this idea of contagious madness or shared madness is because with Arnold Wesker, the original right-hand man of Scarface, the original ventriloquist, yes, you can understand that character, how that character came about. With Rhino, the henchman, then taking on this surrogate role of the replacement, almost the temporary replacement for Arnold Wesker, in order to get instructions from his dummy boss. I mean, if that's not mad, then what is it? It's insanity to the average reader, to the average person on the street. If you describe this scenario, it's completely bonkers. But it's a fascinating idea. It's a fascinating idea, and this is where the occult mingles with the idea of uh, mental illness. Is it is it the case that Rhino was already mentally unwell? Is it the case that having spent time with the ventriloquist, he has become mentally unwell? Can you become mentally unwell yourself after spending time with someone who is mentally unwell? Is that even a possibility? Or is it the case that because the character of Scarface seems to have such a hold over other characters that are around him, is it genuinely the case that there is an occult element to Scarface that could be explored further, that could be developed further? Is Scarface genuinely an entity in its own right? Or is it the case that Scarface is just an extension of Arnold Vesker's own psychotic tendencies? But if that's the case, then how was he able to communicate with such clarity with Rhino? How was Scarface able to be Scarface with the same personality, as it were, with the same level of authority with Rhino that he would be with Vesker? Because Rhino, of course, is just an average goon. So that's something that I found very, very interesting, and this is why Adam Grant is such a great writer, because he really brings out these crazy ideas that I suppose the average person wouldn't think about including in Batman issues. But this is why I love Batman Rogues Gallery so much. Batman seems to have some of the most amazing non-superpowered villains anywhere. And not only that, the other thing that I've realized, or that I had realized a long time ago, and it just this is reaffirmed with me after every other episode or every other issue that I read. Batman's rogue gallery is full of characters whose backgrounds are steeped in tragedy. Arnold Wesker, of course, we've already looked at. The Joker, who's had a number of origin stories, but the one that really sticks out is the one where I think in The Killing Joke, they explain that he was a failed comedian, had a wife to look after. I think he had a child to look after, unless I am mixing that with something else. Forgive me, guys, if I get this wrong. But basically, he is coerced into getting into a heist, which goes wrong. He puts on the red hood, he falls from a bridge, lands into a vat of chemicals, and turns into the Joker. He goes mad after having this episode and turns into the Joker. So yes, a tragic beginning for that particular character. Two-Face, another iconic character in the Batman's Rogue Gallery, was a district attorney who was sprayed or had a vial of acid thrown on his face whilst he was prosecuting, and that drove him mad. Again, a very tragic beginning for that character. I believe the Penguin and the Riddler also had some sort of, well, probably abusive background, I'm sure, which led to them becoming who they are. One of the most tragic characters is Killer Croc. I don't think very much sympathy is really meted out to Killer Croc. I think he deserves a lot more because if you look at Killer Croc, he's not always shown in such a bad light. His first interaction with Man-Bat, for example, was quite sympathetic because he realized that Man-Bat was a freak of nature like him. And so when he found him incapacitated, he basically looked after him. And even when Man-Bat attacked him, he gave him a chance. He fed him, made him healthy again, and then left him on his way. So it goes to show that Waylon Jones has a heart, but he's also a character. If you look at his history, because of the way that he looks, because of the way that he was since he was a child, he was shunned by society. He was an outcast, and that can turn people against society, obviously, over time. Of course, it can. And so his background is also steeped in tragedy. So Batman's rogue gallery, as I earlier mentioned, just has characters who've been shunned by society or forced into taking actions which then lead to tragic circumstances or have tragic circumstances thrust upon them through no fault of their own. And this is why there's so much fascination with these characters. And another really interesting thing which I've just thought about is that why does Batman not permanently get rid of his villains? Why is he not like the Punisher? Why does he have this no kill policy? Now, one could argue it's because Batman doesn't want to become the very thing that he despises. Yes, that is one way of looking at it. But I would say it's more than that. I think that Batman has to be, despite appearances, I think Batman has to be one of the most empathetic characters in the DC universe. In fact, I think any comics universe. And the reason I say that is because I think at some real deep level, Batman understands, because he knows the histories of these characters. So Batman understands that these are all broken, damaged individuals who perhaps if their history had been something else, maybe if their past hadn't been so tragic, would have turned out to be maybe normal, nice people, nice family people, who knows? But they were not given that chance due to a variety of reasons. Tragedy struck, and it turned them into these horrible characters who now basically take out their frustration and anger at members of society. So I suppose you could say that Batman feels their pain, and having felt their pain, he is compelled to restrain himself when he's apprehending these criminals. Again, there's a reason why I say that. When Batman is dealing with the henchmen, nasty characters who perhaps don't have as much of a tragic background as the actual bosses. With them, he's a little less merciful. You hear bones breaking. You have characters being thrown out of windows. He can be short of killing them or short of crippling them. He can be pretty merciless. But with the main characters, with the Joker, with the Riddler, with the Penguin, with Arnold Vesker, Cornelius Stirk, um, even Victor Zaz, actually. I don't know what Victor Zaz's complete background is. I need to search that up. Um, all of these characters, including Batwoman, when they used to tussle. Of course, she's now part ally, part villain. It's difficult to tell. But with all these characters, he doesn't damage them the same way that he does to the henchmen. And I would say that the reason for that is because Batman understands that in some basic level, these characters are just as tragic and broken as he is, if not more. Because, let's face facts. Bruce Wayne, when he lost his parents in the most horrific way possible, had a lot of advantages due to his wealth, due to the loving nature of Alfred, who basically became like a father figure to him, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, everything basically that a young child could need growing up. I suppose Alfred, one of the greatest characters in comic books, by the way, really tried to do to make Bruce as healthy and sane as possible. But these other characters, these villains, they didn't have any of this. They didn't have Bruce's wealth. They didn't have his resources. They didn't have this loving character in his life to lead him on the right path. And without those things, life is tough enough as it is anyway. When you couple that with tragic circumstances, and an unforgiving, unloving society, you get some pretty nasty results, as you know, as at the end of it. So yeah, maybe Batman is uh, is just a counselor in waiting. Maybe Batman is the most loving character of all time. Who knows? Who knows? I could be completely off the hill on this one. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to share this issue with you. I think it's a fascinating insight into well, it's a fascinating insight, but again, just leads to more confusion about this character of Arnold Wesker, and the question of whether A, is madness contagious, or is there a cult element to the character of Scarface that is probably more prominent or more real than this notion of Wesker being mad. Maybe we'll get an answer. Maybe there is an answer out there already. Maybe I've missed it. If I have, please let me know in the comments. And as ever, please do like and subscribe if you will. Thank you for joining me again, guys. Appreciate your time. And I will see you in the next one. Okay, take care.